Welcome to the workshop. My name's Evan Raskob. I'm a artist, lecturer, game designer, dilettante in many different things. And today we're going to be creating some interesting games to tell stories. So this is kind of a fun little practice of, instead of just directly creating stories, it's like creating a bunch of mini stories, and then mixing them all together. Um, I'm going to go through a bit about how that works. But first, again, if you're just joining, um, oops, sorry if things get a little glitchy. You never know when you're sharing things on the internet. So again, here these are the notes over here that I've got. This is the outline for this whole workshop, so you can follow along there. There's some links to different boards we're going to collaborate on, and all different exercises and the notes. And I mean, this is really like a super interactive workshop. So yeah, I'm gonna, I think, talk a little bit at the beginning to hopefully inspire and then give some ideas. And then we've got a couple structured exercises. But this is, let's say, yeah, this is kind of an experimental one, I would say. I've run various versions of like futuring and alternate reality and storytelling workshops, but I've not really run a really long games one just in itself. So I think this will be a fun extension of what I've done before. I hope you think so too. Okay, so I've got two computers. So if you see me look over to the side, I might be checking whatever information's going on. Fantastic. So we're going to have a couple breakout rooms for chats. I think everyone knows pretty much how this is working with Discord and Whereby. I think we've all figured that out. Yeah, probably as much as we need to. So for those in the workshop, we're just going to be, I'll send you links. We'll be collaborating, and otherwise this is sort of broadcast live on, I guess, Twitch and the internet. So if there's anything you kind of don't want to share that's public, we can put that into different spots. But I guess just be aware that this is going out to the world. But hopefully don't let that limit you creatively. Because by the world, I mean like a very small section of the world. Probably not a huge section of it. Okay, so about this workshop. So we're going to make our own versions of the game, of a game. Again, this is sort of a riff on the game that I've been developing. But don't let that constrain you. You can do anything you want to. This is a fun free-form workshop. It's about, what is it? It's a couple hours. So I think we're going up to like about 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. So it's a long one. So I'll have to take some breaks in between, but a lot of it will be sort of free-form tasks as well, beyond my just telling you the ropes at the beginning. If you follow along, there's a table of contents. You can easily get to all the different bits of what we're going to talk about. But talking about the goals. So I've sort of started this from from what we're doing at the end to what we're doing at the beginning. So it's almost a little backwards, but starting out with what we want to achieve. Hopefully, everyone's going to create either individually or in teams some kind of storytelling or experimental narrative game. That means that number two, we're going to have to experiment with different types of rules for telling games. For scoring different actions inside games. So we're going to look at cooperative and competitive rule sets, which again is something I've worked with on my games. So hopefully you can create your own riff on that. We're going to discuss common story plots, such as archetypes and prompts. So different mechanisms you can use to structure your stories. We're going to learn about some story elements, so common elements of stories and some storytelling techniques that we can quickly use. And I'm going to also show some games that help use storytelling and speculative techniques. So you have something else to look at as well. So hopefully it's a lot of different inspirations you can use. Housekeeping. So again, please abide by the code of conduct. I think everyone here seems like a nice person. So no, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about that. But again, we'll keep it nice and respectful and constructive. I think what's really important with storytelling, especially early stage storytelling like this, constructive. It's so easy to crush stories in their early age before they're actually become anything good. So, I'm a big fan of kind of growing intuition, and that means just accepting quite a lot of things at the beginning without being too critical. Okay, so we're going to be very lightly critical and try not to be judgmental today. We can take some shared notes, and I've posted a link to that as well. Hopefully, I called it something different in the chat, so let's stick with that. So that's a anonymous pad that's going to delete itself after, I think, 15 or 30 days. I forget which version that is. So we'll keep some scratch notes on there if we want. Again, that's public to the world, so you can anonymously type stuff into there. No one will know it was you, and it will delete itself, but people will see it. And if you have any issues with like internet or access or anything else, or you can't hear me or anything, any kind of issue with accessibility at all, then it'd be good to let me know. You could do it through Discord or through the chat or something like that. That would be really helpful. Okay, so before we start, let me just check. If you don't mind, I just want to check the stream that's going on here, just to make sure that we're all live. Yeah. If I can get it to work on my other laptop, fantastic. This is just what you want to watch, is somebody playing with things on their other laptop. Okay. I don't know. I can't. Twitch is like another world. This is when you date yourself in terms of how old you are, because I just see Twitch and like my mind I'm like, there's too much going on here. I'm done. It's like TikTok. I love it. TikTok is fantastic, but it's also just like mainlining into the meme of the internet. There's just too much information too quickly. So I'm going to assume that everything's going okay. Before we start, is there anything I should know? Anything going on? No? All good? Okay, then let's get to know each other. So I was hoping that in the things that we have here, in the shared pad, which, let me ask first, are people okay? Oh, I just shared the pad. I'm really sorry. I forgot I was doing that. I was trying to ask if I could share the pad before it went out, and it shared a different window, and I thought, sorry, is there anyone who does not want me to show any of that information and wants me to make sure that's deleted from the stream? If you don't want me to show anything, then just raise your hand or put like a minus sign in the chat. Is that good? Yeah, or did someone click? I don't know what happened. I heard a bling on this. Okay, I don't think anyone said no though, so that's good. Also, I should point out there's a hand at the bottom of Whereby, and sometimes you can't see it, but so I made that mistake the other day. You click that, you immediately just leave the chat without anyone telling you. So be careful with that button. I will let you back in, but don't hit that. Great. Okay, so let's get to know each other then. Let's talk about our pets. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that what we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So yeah. How about Sarah? We've got you first. Do you mind introducing yourself and your pets, and then we can try and guess what type of pets they are? Okay, this is the game show portion of the game.
I'm Sarah. I live on the banks of the Thames in the UK, a bit further up than London, a bit of a nicer bit of the Thames. Mm-hmm. And my pets are called Molly and Jackson.
Ooh, Molly and Jackson. Okay, good names.
I have another pet as well, but
not
those
like
are
Jackson
two.
Pollock, the painter.
Yeah, he's named after Jackson Pollock.
Oh, he is? Oh, okay. There we go. There's one point for Evan. Okay. There you go. +1. Feel free to give yourself points. It's editable. Does anyone want to guess what those pets are? Either in voice or in typing in. We got dogs and cats.
Nah.
No. Oh, okay. Usually that gets it.
I do have a cat as well.
Any other guesses? We have to go now to our second tier.
I do have a cat, and the cat has to be kept separate from Molly and Jackson.
I'm going to go with...
Nope. Yes! Kelly, well done.
I was going to say birds.
They're a pair of lovely little ratty boys.
Rats? Oh. All right, there we go. Plus one for Kelly there. Or should you do +2 for each pet? I don't know. So again, I introduced myself. My name's Evan. I'm in the UK, in London. Not really by the banks of the Thames, closer to a reservoir, just a bit in the north bit of London. And my pet name is Sailor. What do you think? It's quite a strange one, I have to say. And I didn't make that name up. It was my neighbor's name. Well, obviously not my neighbor's name, but my neighbor named it. It's not a dog, no. You'd think it'd be a dog. No, not a fish. I mean, a fish would have been good. It's also not an eel. The duck. Frog. Yeah, I think I might have stumped people here. All right, one more guess, and then we'll move on. What do people think? Wow. But then I went to a school that had a veterinary college, so that was part of it. Sailor's a cat. Sailor is a cat. Very nice cat. A bit of a dog cat. Okay, and then we have Truthy. Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Shruti. I'm based in India, and I don't have a pet. I've never had a pet. And it sort of took me around 10 minutes to come up with a name to think of my friends' pets. But the name is Mango, and I think you can now guess what it is.
Dog? I'm gonna go dog.
Yeah, it's a dog, yeah.
There we go. All right, that was quick. That's good. Mango the dog. That's a good dog name too. It's an orange dog. Orange. Oh. Or an orange cat. Who's next? We have Kelly. Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kelly. I'm in Seattle in the USA. So it's on the West Coast. It's, almost 8 o'clock here in the morning. And my pet is Bean.
Bean, okay. What do people think? Bean can go either way. That's a really in the middle one. Could be because the animal's small. It could be it's full of beans. I don't know. There's many ways that could go.
All right, looks like Sarah got it.
Dog?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right off the bat. All right.
He was like trying to get in the video. And
oh, nice. Oh. Well, dogs are welcome to play.
Yeah, like she's like a cat dog too. Dog cats, cat dogs.
They're all the same. They're just different sides of the coin. Okay, next up we have Ana Maria in Costa Rica.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Ana, and same as Kelly. We are almost night here, and I don't have pets. for now, and probably if I will have one, the name definitely would be Ain. And I made the mistake to put the anime that confronts the name, so probably you know that there is a dog. So yeah, it's because the Penrose Wells Corgi from Cowboy Bebop, the series. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's nice to meet you. You all.
Nice to meet you too. So are you an anime fan? Or just a Cowboy Bebop
Try
fan?
to watch it all. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, we'll have to come back to that, but I'll give you a point for guessing your own pet name. How about that? Collaborative scoring here. Like I said, there's nothing wrong in this workshop. No wrong answers. And then we have Luis. Are you here, Luis?
Hi. Yes, I am here. I don't have a camera, but I am here. Hello, guys.
Sure. Hello.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself and your pet name?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
You can hear me? Okay, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so my name is Luis, as you can see. I'm here in Costa Rica too. And the pet name is actually it is like a police kind of series from Germany, and they have a dog that solves mysteries, kind of like Scooby-Doo, but it's not Scooby-Doo. So that's the name of it. And so I grabbed that one because I actually think it's kind of funny because it's kind of like if Scooby-Doo was a very intelligent detective without all the goofy stuff going on. So that's why I picked that one, because I think it's just funny.
Check that out at some point. I hope that would make it into a story somewhere as well.
Oh yeah, you can Google it. Oh yeah, you can Google it and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just it's not a cartoon. It's actually like a real life. It's a German Shepherd, but super intelligent, that solves mysteries and crimes and stuff. So imagine it like a Scooby-Doo real life, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. It's sort of like Benji, but with Scooby-Doo. If anyone remembers Benji.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I expect a callback to a crime-fighting dog at some point in this future, this workshop here. So let's keep that in mind.
All right.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, good to meet everybody. Oh, glad we got to know each other a little bit better. So why don't I'm just going to say a couple things maybe about storytelling games, and with a couple prompts to different projects that are similar to what we're doing here today. And then we're going to sort of launch into storytelling and speculative techniques, and then just start to do some thinking about it. I don't want to talk too much because I want to keep momentum going. If I go too fast, just let me know. And if you want to talk, I know there's sometimes a lag. So if you put like a plus sign in the chat, then I'll know you want to talk. Or just, raise your hand if you're on camera. Okay. So first, why use storytelling games at all? Which is an interesting question, I suppose. But you're all in the workshop, so I'm guessing that you all have your good reasons for that. Did anyone see the previous workshop? Were you watching that live stream? The one with the featuring, or have you just tuned in for this? If you just tuned in for this, well, fantastic. But the last one was also had a lot of crossover. So if you're watching these back to back, then that's an intense amount of featuring, I have to say. One of the reasons I think why we want to do storytelling games versus just any sort of storytelling technique is that games are nice. They're fractured, right? Games are in little bits and pieces that you can sort of recombine. And that to me is really interesting, especially because I'm a big fan of like novels and whatnot, which are more linear, with some notable exceptions. But the idea that games are sort of fun and they're interactive and they help people actually build worlds is really interesting to me. But which I'll talk about a little bit more. But I mean, the basic thing is, I mean, here's an image from Twitter of San Francisco burning right now, and then on the right is a card that I made, like pretty much last year, talking about fires in the world. I think I made this card after. I'm not sure. There was a lot of fires in 2019, and before that. So maybe it was after a California wildfire, or maybe it was after the Australian fires, or maybe it was after just reading about climate change projections. But to me, I really wanted to create a little sort of mini narrative, a little mini portrait of what the world could be if we don't really pay attention to it, if we have these fires in the future. So I think it's kind of disheartening that we have these fires now and we have such dramatic images. And I'd love to have people playing games to try and figure this stuff out. Yeah, and I apologize if you're on the West Coast and you're seeing this. Maybe you don't want to deal with this early in the morning. I think there's a lot of heavy topics to get to with some of these future games. So I will say during this workshop, sometimes they can get a bit intense, but they can also be quite fun and light as well. So choose your path through it. That's what I'll say. If it's too heavy for 8 o'clock in the morning, you haven't had coffee, then feel free to choose a lighter path. The brilliant thing about the future is like what William Gibson said, that the future is always unevenly distributed, as is the present. And I think, what we forget is that, I see so many sort of featuring projects and just so many projects that look at certain aspects of the future and then forget that, there's so many futures across the world that people are going to experience in all different countries and cultures and communities. So, there's a lot to choose from. It's a bit daunting. So kind of just picking out a couple interesting projects maybe to kind of inspire us. On the left, we have Dunn and Robbie's Realists. What's it called? Realists of a Larger Reality, Globes 2019. On the right, we have who I would call the legendary Stuart Candy, who's done an amazing amount of futures work and thinking about it and really creating curriculums and projects inside that space, and is well worth reading and looking at. And he's got Nurture Pod, which is a bit, I'm not sure. I mean, to be honest, if it's dystopian or not. It's a really interesting and strong image of, a child in VR, I think, learning, the idea that, we're going to start teaching kids very early on to kind of grapple with these digital technologies and to try and, get better than the rest of the kids, to use these VR experiences to give education at such an early age, for better, for worse. It's a very provocative image. But, I think the beauty of it is that it's very ambiguous as well, because it's a strong reaction, and clearly it looks horrible to strap a kid into VR. But then you could see a lot of parents thinking, maybe that would work. And Stuart and his groups and projects really ride that line between, dystopia. He's got another one called Nature Pod, which is about viewing nature, disappearing nature through virtual reality, which people really wanted to buy and put into their corporate offices. But of course, it was a sort of critique on the fact that we don't have nature in corporate offices anymore, that we've destroyed big chunks of it. So I think it's interesting riding the line between desirability, but maybe things that we shouldn't desire. And then on the left, you have Dunn and Robbie, who I think really think in, to me, a bit more of an artistic sense, a bit more of an experimental sense. And they've created all these lovely globes for worlds that don't exist. And I mean, it's quite, on the face of it, a simple exhibition, but I find it really lovely because it kind of harkens back to science fiction and all these different like science fiction worlds, like Larry Niven's, Ring worlds, that talk about what if we lived on different sized and spaced worlds? Like, how would that feel like? So these are just blank canvases to really project our worlds onto. And some of them are just like what would it be like to live in that crazy grid world, like a Rubik's Cube world with like the next planet right up above you? I mean, it'd be kind of fascinating to look up and then see, you know, someone else looking back down on you. Maybe it feels like New York City. I'm not sure. But two sources of inspiration. But of course, those are sort of storytelling in projects. I mean, that's really a sort of speculative design featuring school of thought. What we're getting towards, I think, more of the games is more like the science fiction aspect of it, which is really about storytelling. So, you know, for me, for making games, I really wanted to work on storytelling. To be honest, though, you can also use their aspects to make more abstract games, which are more, you know, in the artistic sort of surrealist method as well. Like that's also a possibility. But I'm going to concentrate more, I think, on narrative games here. And narrative games, you can break up stories into some different pieces. And that really, I think, helps you make the stories a bit better. At least it does in my experience of teaching these. And basically that comes down to like three things, which I'll go back to in a minute. So, you know, the first one is sort of characters or entities. So things that things happen to, I guess you could say, in a very abstract definition, you know, something for the viewer to sort of latch onto as the thing that's driving the story forward. Second, we have location and context. You know, the story has to take place somewhere. And I think we forget about this a lot, that location and context are really meaningful. They have a lot of story built into them, like a lot of history, a lot of location. So those are really important aspects of it. And then the third one is plot or story type. So this can help shape a story. So you can tell a story with just a character and a location, but plot or story type kind of helps you shape that story. And you can use all these different tropes or archetypes that we already have built in from different stories. So I brought up Red Mars on the side because I think that's an amazing book. It's one of the kind of only sort of utopian-ish like future bits of science fiction. And it's a really detailed, maybe even too detailed for some people, thought experiment on what it'd be like to get to Mars and live there and colonize it. And if you haven't read it, I absolutely recommend all of Kim Stanley Robinson's work in that series. But those three elements are huge, I think, inside this book. Location is Mars, and the characters are basically set across all of his three novels. And then each one, he has a number of different plots that actually he weaves through it. So, you know, it's an interesting example because, you know, for one story, you may have one plot, but for something like a game or something like a science fiction novel, you may actually have a bunch of interwoven plots all together. So I thought, time's it. I'm just gonna talk a tiny bit more, and then I'll get into the actual making stuff, I swear. I thought it'd be fun to introduce my game as well, because maybe then you can understand a bit about how I've grappled with some of these issues. But before I do, does anyone have any like questions or anything or comments? Or how many people read Mars, by the way, out of curiosity, or any of his KSR, Kim Stanley, right? Yeah, KSR's other work. Yeah, one. Okay. Just curious. How many people here are fans of science fiction in general? Or at least tolerate science fiction? Yeah, most people? Okay. That's good to hear. Oh, wow, that was slow. Okay, we'll see how my computer handles all of this that's going on at this point in time. So this is a link to the game that I created. I'll put this into the chat. I'm not going to make this editable because this is really just to demonstrate the hands in the game. It's not really meant to be edited. Oh yeah, Shruti, you had something you wanted to say or a question?
No. I think I was just answering the question and there was a delay. for the hand to come up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Game, if you zoom in on the game, you can see there's basically 4 hands for 4 players. Actually, the game got so big that I decided to split it in half. So there's a peak 1 and a peak 2. So you can play basically it in the half versions, it's more designed for 2 to 3 players. In the full version, you can do 4 players to maybe even 12 players if you want to. I think might have even had 16 players on the big version. So the idea is I've broken up the future into these different chunks. So if I click the frames icon here, you can see, you can browse through the different year groups. So I'm going to control the view so you can see there's 2050 to 60. So going backwards, it starts in the future with 2050 to 60. And you have going from left to right, you have a plot card, you have a character or entity card, and then you have these report cards. Okay, so there's 3 types of cards. And at the bottom, you have scoring tokens. And the one on the left, the plot card, the red card, is just really designed. It's sort of an abstract plot prompt to give you a bit of story mechanism to work with. The entity card in the middle is your character who you're supposed to talk about inside this future. And then you've got these other 2 cards here, which are like sort of mini story cards that ground this future world. So for me, over 2 years, and at first we really did, we had more cards. First off, we had context cards, which were a bit like, almost like design sector cards. And then sometimes they were also locations. So we experimented with the idea that things take place within like manufacturing or healthcare, sort of classic design or industrial segment. And then we also had cards that were more tied to locations. But as we played it, we realized that characters and the stories were already pretty grounded in locations. So we really didn't need any of that. And I mean, as fun as it was to use that, it did sometimes make the stories more complicated. So we gave people freedom. So we sort of boiled it down to these 3 things. And the report cards, as you see, are stories. I mean, if you zoom in on them, it may be a little hard to see them there. But if you zoom in, there's there are 2 stories. I hope people can sort of read them. The idea with them again was actually to take. So to go back a bit, when you make these games, you see there's a lot of research you kind of have to do. They take a bit of time to really create, and it takes me a long amount of time to pick together all different elements and put them together, because they're mini stories. They're based on research. They're designed to not just be. I work in academia, so I'm really trying not to like just make up stuff about the future. I want to make sure this stuff is referenceable. Okay, I want to make sure that the knowledge I put into this game isn't just me conjecturing, right? So these are usually linked to articles or journals or things that I've read. Okay, they're all linked back to something, and I've even toyed with putting actual citations inside them, but that got a bit too complicated, I think, for for a card game, at least for now. But these are real bits of research that people can then use to quickly make stories. So all the elements hopefully are here for someone to like start to create a story world very quickly based on some sort of observable fact. So that was the concept with Peak. You could see how these stories live in different time frames. So in this one, they're broken up into 10-year time periods. There's 4 time periods that you have. So each player plays as a time period. There's actually a number of cool things you could do inside that people have suggested, playing as characters in different time periods or in multiple time periods, or there's plenty of other ways you could go about this. So in your own games, I encourage you to experiment. But for me, I thought it'd be interesting to ground things in a time period, as if you're all traveling. You're all sort of telling stories across time. Like if you think of a movie that jumps forward and jumps backwards in time, it's a bit like that. Let's see. There are some fun characters here. I like, let's see, Crafty Craftwell is one of my favorite characters, who's loosely based on a real life person who maybe some people will figure out from the description, who may or may not work for a giant company and be a bit of an interesting character who wants to live forever and then worship AI. Not going to say who that is. I hope if he ever sees it, he might appreciate the card and the humor about it. But the idea of an AI evangelist, somehow projected across 40 years in the future, I thought could be kind of fascinating. So how did I make this thing? Well, first I read a lot. I read all the time, and I try and read a variety of different books. Like I'm really into Mushroom at the End of the World, which has got me really thinking about fungus and fungal connections, to the point where I started diving into scientific papers that showed how the circulatory systems of fungi actually work, which is in a sort of oscillating frequency, which is the most fascinating things I've seen. If you want, I can point you towards videos of fungi circulating metals and sharing them with trees. And it's one of the most trippy things, I think. A, that people could actually take pictures of that, and B, that we actually understand how that works a little bit. But the reading, I think, real bits of research definitely gets you thinking deeper about things than just reading newspaper articles. So that's a big part of this. Is that I really try and get deep, and I try and balance my science fiction, which has great ideas, with ethnographic research, anthropological research, the New Yorker, which I take so many things from. I really love their in-depth reporting, and then some people from Twitter. The Hidden Life of Trees, is that a thing? That sounds interesting. I may have to check that out.
Yeah, it talks about the way that trees communicate with each other using fungi. It's one of the things, and the fact that trees form communities, and a group of trees will keep a tree of the same species alive for centuries sometimes, even though it's a dead stump.
Oh, interesting.
It made me feel very sad.
Yeah, games about trees and forests is like definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, trees get a bad rap, don't they? It must be strange to be a tree. I guess, yeah. But besides all those lovely things with ecology, I really got into the Charisma Machine, which is really interesting. If you're interested in critiques of modern technology and the charisma of modern technology and technological projects, that was a really fascinating book. Not an easy read, but a really interesting read. A lot of I teach technology, I guess you could say, because I teach in computing, and a lot of what I'm getting into now is a lot of criticism of technology, which I think is a healthy place to be if you're teaching computing. Okay, so let's get into like doing stuff. So this is where it gets a bit abstract. I'd like people to we're going to start in this sort of little mini exercise, which may or may not work that well. I've got a couple of mini exercises, and we'll see how they go, what the feeling in the room is. But to start off, I just put these prompts here. I guess I'm not really going to go through them all now, but these are just things I think to come back to, just generally when you're writing about the future, when you're writing mini stories or thinking about your stories. And I'm not going to say I've invented these. I think they're in my head, but they've definitely come from a whole lot of different places. So I'm definitely not going to take credit for them. They bubbled up from a lot of things, but some to pick out. I think the second one was really interesting. The what's mundane or taken for granted is something that's really interesting in your storytelling future games. Because the future mundane, the stuff that's like boring in the future, that's amazing now, is really interesting. Like where I think the interesting boundaries are. So whenever I write a future story, I'm always thinking, what do my characters take this future? Like mobile phones, or good internet or video calls. What is it that's like magic to them that's just sometimes horrible, boring drudgery to us? And then the second one is almost the last 2 points there, which is that really seeking out different perspectives so you can look at the world from alternate views, and then focusing on characters and not archetypes or stereotypes or personas. So really trying to make sure that you're not caricaturing. That can be a good prompt of discussion to really talk with people with different perspectives. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, so let's get on to doing some stuff. So things to keep in mind, context and character are what we're going to start really keep in mind as we create things. So when does this take place, or where? What is the sort of boundaries of it? And then also, who does this take place to, or what? You know, is it an object or a pet or something else? What is the focus of these stories? So if you click on this link, the image is as prompts. Okay. What I would like to try and do, this is a bit of an experiment with Miro and the internet. I've got some like sort of strong images, and I thought to start off. Oh, by the way, I've realized the previous workshop did this exact same thing, so now I feel a derivative here today. But it's a good exercise. So I thought to start off, because some people like to search by images, some people like to start with text. So let's start with images. Let's find some interesting images beyond the ones I've already showed, and then let's collect them together. So I'm going to talk about some of the ones I have. You can start searching for images that you think are interesting on the web. And at the bottom of this slide, there should be another Miro board, which is our, where's that? That's our story space, right? Yeah, that's our story space one. So that should be this board right here. So if you don't have access to it, let me make sure that you have access to it. You just have to request access. Okay. If you're in the workshop, you can click that, and then I think request access at the top, and then I'll give you access to it. And we're going to try and put some images into this. And I know there's even a weird Google image search block somewhere, which, how does that work? Which crashes my computer, maybe. Oh no, I think that's something. Okay, so that's, everyone can use that. So if you click again on the 3-dot menu at the bottom, and then the Google image search block, you should get a Google search like this, and you can just put things in. So you can search for like fungal networks, and then let's see what we get. Whoa, get lots of weird stuff. Oh, I like that. Let's try that. And then, yeah, and they may appear kind of big. So if you could just put them maybe off to the side, that would be helpful, at least for now. World up into like maybe a couple quadrants that we can work with. So I think we can start to decide, you know, where we think our images exist in this future world, and then start to create some plots and stuff around it. But if you're following along on Notion, then you know, I've provided a couple strong images, including this one, which is probably the most 2020 image I think I've seen this year, in so many ways, which came from the Black Lives Matters protests. I think Kelly, not too far from your hometown there. I'm pretty sure. Was that Portland? No, sorry, that's Philadelphia. You can actually see it on the sign in the background. I'm sorry, that's another P city in the United States. That happened very early on, I think in May. And I've lost the original attribution to this, so I'm sorry about that. That's closer to my hometown than it is to the West Coast. But I just thought this was quite an amazing image to see. You could definitely, I think of a couple hundred short stories just off the bat with this one. I've also got here, again, you could ignore me if you want to and search or listen. On the left, I have AV Rutanen, who is one of our students at Goldsmiths. She did this computational arts practice and came up with these amazingly sort of uncannily cute sculptures, which fall in between. The idea is to fall in between cute and then creepy. And so she actually made these working sculptures, and these are the lickers, which are little pets that lick, mechanically lick. I thought they were fantastic and very futuristic in a very interesting way. And that juxtaposed on the right with these this very recent photo of migrant crop pickers, I think in California, who were forced to go out in the wildfires and then actually pick cucumbers by the light of their own mobile phone in the sort of dark red fog, is a fascinatingly dystopian image of these poor people and what they're having to endure right now. And juxtapose that with these classic Microsoft photos. So Microsoft, there's a link to this, the Microsoft's 2011 vision of the future, which is just absolutely amazing for being 10 years ago, where everything is sort of a glass smartphone. Everyone's communicating through video, whatever, which is ironic from the company that had Skype, 20 years ago, and now has not really done a ton with it since. To be 10 years into the future and not even be close to any of the things that they're showing in this. Sorry, Microsoft. They're probably not going to hire me anyway, so I can talk about them. Also, on the right, the green roofs, which exist at the end, a little sort of nod to future sustainability, where we live in massive cities, and we've just done these sort of agricultural prisons, I guess, on top of different buildings where the only small plants can live and not even big trees and fungal forests. So I think that's a fascinatingly dystopic version of the future that comes out of their utopian version. Juxtaposed on the left with mushroom pickers in the northwest of the United States, who have these amazing camps which are outlined in the fungus at the end of the world, and they're refugees from southern Vietnam and Cambodia. And they've sort of recreated their village life in the forests of America by picking mushrooms as sort of a way of sustaining themselves. And that feels very futuristic in a way of how we might all wind up in some sort of post-capitalist wasteland picking mushrooms, but maybe not in the worst way, kind of recreating that different village life a la Ursula Le Guin or something. So if you're into Ursula Le Guin, another titan of science fiction, that felt very Ursula Le Guin to me. And if you're not, please read some of her stories. I'll put her name in the chat there. Okay, should we check on what's going on here? How are people doing? Are people able to do stuff, or how are people finding this? I'm going to give, oh, sorry, it shows email addresses. I really don't want to show email addresses. That's horrible. I'm really sorry about that. Can we need to edit things. Okay. Cool. So should I, why did I leave people to do this for a bit? I mean, I've gone on for quite a while, so we could also take a bit of a break as well. So how about we'll do this exercise for like maybe like 20 minutes. Yeah, get some good material together. 20, maybe 20. Yeah, take a break, do that, come back at like whatever, about 40 minutes past whatever your local time is. So what is that? For me, that's 1640 BST, which is 1740 CET. Okay, I'm going to take a quick for a minute.
Sorry, just to clarify, are we collecting images and pasting them into onto the grid?
Let's see. It's all gone really slow. Sorry. Okay. Oh, that's a good one in there. I'm just looking in the other window here. Okay, let me come back to this now. I've given access to Anna. I think I've given you access now, hopefully. In the separate
Yeah,
window.
thanks. I'm pasting image right now. Thanks.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's see. Come back into here. Now we're live on the stream with that. Fantastic. I've also found something special here. This is great. It's really interesting ones. If anyone needs any help putting images in, just give me a shout. It's not always very easy to figure out. It's that upload up key, and you can do stuff with that. You can choose an image or whatnot. This is for Louise. I've got Commissar Rex over here. I'm not sure what feature that existed, but it may be all features. Oops. Let's see if this. What's really nice about Miro is that it does actually seem to scale images intelligently based on the size of your screen. So you don't get too much detail if you don't want it. So I feel like I'm not so sure if Commissar Rex fits in a good self-organizing chaos world or structured evil. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like it could be either or both. I'm going to put it in good self-organizing chaos is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put all mine in good self-organizing chaos. Okay. There we go. So hopefully I'm not messing with people's perspective here. Nope. Just checking. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Oh wow, these are great. Your own like universes out here. Either way is fine.
I thought that it was like per person, so I create mine at the right of the mirror. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. Well, I'll tell you, if you're doing that, do you want to just put like they have these things frames. Do you see down here on the bottom left? You can make, and then you can like see it brings up this whole thing, and you could put your work in there and maybe give it your name, or maybe better to give your feature a title. So you can like draw a little frame around all your work if you want to, like so. I think that'd be a good idea. That would make it easier to navigate, probably. So if you can add a frame to your stuff, that would be good. Mm-hmm. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in down here. That's interesting. Got seeds on the desktop. Yeah. Or is that, oops, I don't want to drag your thing. Or is that about spices or designer drugs? Can be hard to tell. These are fantastic. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. How do I do that? Oh, you can. I didn't realize in Whereby you can drag people into the front and then it does different things with that. Okay, should we give a different view to the people at home? We've got Marie Kondo. I have to read that. The year is 2025, 2035. Marie Kondo holds up the condemned man to the crowd. Does this man spark joy? The crowd jeers. No, he does not. She nods silently and throws him into the pit. That is a fun and dark feature. See, now you've reminded me of something else I'm going to have to put into this as well. Where is this? Oh. Oh, great. Is that how it's going to go, huh? It's not going to show that. I'm not showing my screen to there. How do I just drag and drop? Sorry. It's the trouble with sharing your screen is that then it all becomes about your screen. Oh, go on. You can see my files here. Where is it? And he once accidentally showed his desktop to an entire stadium full of people, which is quite a dangerous and interesting thing to do. I'm going to put mine, if you don't mind. I'm going to put mine next to yours here, because this was something I did. And I thought it was hilarious because I just noticed that everybody was talking about how this is the longest episode of Black Mirror ever, and apparently it's a trope that goes back, like, I think, to the start of Black Mirror. People have been posting that to Twitter. So it's interesting how these sort of other memes just kind of keep going. Oh, sorry. Did other people request access? Did I not give it to them? Yeah. Oh, hello. Sorry, I managed to kick myself out of my own workshop. Here we go. It meant to paste that into a different browser, and then it just went into this one. Sorry about that. Man, they make it really easy to kick yourself out of rooms in this. Okay, good. I'm back. Again, sorry about that. Okay, so I think we've done pretty well for this. How are people feeling? Do people oops. Yeah, sorry, lost all my chat history. Did anyone want to say something or had a question or anything like that? I see a wave. Is that the hello for coming back? Maybe that was it. Boy, technology works so well. Okay, I don't know. I can't run Miro in 2 windows, so I'm just gonna come back to whereby. Cool. So how about I wonder what we should do. Why don't we just take a few minutes maybe to explore our story spaces. Maybe we could just describe how they're organized, or if there's a sort of theme. I mean, again, these are sort of prompts, so I don't know if we need to really describe all the stuff inside them. I think that would be a bit too much of a task. But it might be nice to think if there's sort of an underlying theme to your story world. Oh, and I like that. Yeah, and we have comments too. Oh yes, and of course, if you want to, comments are like a lovely idea. Sorry, I should have thought of that as well. So if you want to comment on people's story worlds as well, that would be really fun. Maybe I'll browse through them here. And so whose story worlds is this right here? Who am I looking at? Someone want to take credit for this story world? No? Okay. We don't have to. Want to talk about their story world, or would you rather just experience it? What do people want? If you want to talk about yours, just put like a plus in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just experience it and leave some notes, and then move on to the next bit of the exercise. Yeah, okay. Some people want to talk about it. All right, Sarah, you were first in. I don't know how to give you control over this view, so if you could point me towards where the story space is, I'll move towards it. How about that?
Yeah, I partially this is wanted to sort of apologise because maybe I didn't understand the tasks we were doing. I may have missed an important instruction because I was being mugged by my cat and I had to go and feed him. It's a Bengal, so it gets very loud and very hitty if you don't feed him on time. So I don't think I've really created a coherent story as such.
It's okay.
Just dotted a whole load of stuff here, there, and everywhere about futures that interest me at the moment. So I haven't got a coherent story to tell. But my favourite one, which I wanted to draw attention to, the sort of gritty green-looking stuff.
Yeah.
Something I found out about yesterday. This is actually the 5th conference that I'm attending this week. They all seem to come at once. So I'm attending the IFTF one as well, and this is olivine sand. And apparently it sequesters carbon. So it's a very, very sort of prolific mineral, olivine. Peridot, I think it's also known as. And if you grind it up and make it into sand and put it on beaches, it not only sequesters carbon at the rate of about 120%. So in other words, for 1 pound of olivine sand, you'll sequester 1.2 pounds of carbon and turn it into, bicarbonate basically. But it also deacidifies the oceans as well. And it's done through wave motion. And apparently, if we just put in something ridiculous, like I think it was 70 kilometers square. It might even have been 7 kilometers square. It was a very small number of this olivine sand. It would sequester all the carbon we use each year.
All right, that's interesting.
Which is
I'm going to put in
something else.
Is it like olivine sand? Is that how you say it?
Olivine, yeah. Like Olive with IN in the middle.
Okay.
And because I've
Of course,
worked
they're going to
in...
find out it causes cancer or something like that.
No, apparently they're doing work on test speeches at the moment. But I mean, it's a completely natural process, which is already happening. So they're just trying to augment it. And apparently it's really good for ecosystems because obviously it deacidifies the ocean as well. So it brings back marine ecosystems as well. And what they're working on at the moment is trying to bring the price down. But I've worked in sort of sustainability and sort of climate teaching and learning for the longest time. And it's always really bad news. So this really cheered me up. So I'm sharing it with everybody at the moment to cheer people up.
That's good to hear. Yeah, that sounds interesting. We got to look into that. Olivine sand. Okay. That and kelp, and we're set to go, right? What else do we need?
Yeah. So it's being used in conjunction with kelp and bivalve ecosystems because people are doing that as well.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because, if you look at technology, there's a big fight over whether or not technology will save us. And sometimes it does. I mean, if you look at, maybe it's not save, but, you look at the early 20th century when everyone had horses. They got too many horses and it was just about to collapse all the big cities. And then they invented cars.
Yeah.
But of course, then cars have been a bit of an interesting travesty in themselves. So, the law of unintended consequences is always fascinating.
Yeah, that was one thing that did concern me about it, is the idea that people may jump on that and go, oh, that's it, it's solved. So I think with using these kinds of, it's almost rewilding to a certain extent, we need to be very careful that people don't think that gives us a license to just carry on the way we're going, because behavior change has got to be the number one priority, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, interesting. I like that. Yeah, and that already is setting a nice balanced story of the future of having to have these magical elements that eat up carbon, but then balance how we introduce them to not just exaggerate our behavior even more.
Yeah.
Thanks. Can I also say that I think the random aspect is really nice, because if your future is too thematic, you do run the risk of just being in too small an area. When I've been working on the game, I've really tried to put in some stuff that was just random. Just go on Wikipedia and search for a random thing, or search, talk to a random friend, or have them introduce you to a random person and put something in there, because of course randomness gives you more of a noisy, rounder picture of the world, right? Otherwise, you can get stuck in your little boxes. So,
I have ADD, so I have no choice. My brain is just totally random.
I feel you. Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Sarah. Should we do, let's see, I don't know. Maybe let's definitely do another one. Who is next? Kelly, do you want to show us yours?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about it?
The one with the purple box around it. I thought that'd make it look a little easier. So let's see. I'm just gonna close.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and zoom all the way on here.
Started blowing. Yeah. So I feel like when I look at the themes for these, it's maybe like a mix of not like high tech, low tech, but kind of like a return or fusion to like familiar, like, I don't know, interfaces and things with higher technology. Like this is it's like a skin on interface. So kind of like reimagining, I guess parts, not like the biological world, but like there's some of the different things like with like lab grown meat and stuff. So how we're kind of like recreating more familiar, like sensory things. And there was this, which is I think something Gatorade invented. It was like supposed to read sweat and tell you what your what your body needed during sport, but they thought it could also be used for like coronavirus. So what's the idea of that? Thinking of like different climate things. I don't know, can different things read the effect of like air quality on it, on you? Thinking of what's going on in the West Coast right now. It's kind of a random assortment of things. There was some sort of like virtual, it's called a ghost pacer. So it's a VR pacer for athletes. So that idea of like like the virtual coaching, and like what other things could you have where, there's always this kind of better virtual version pushing you towards a better version of yourself. The one next to that was there's like different people in the US who are getting mystery seed packets from China. Yeah, and like we're being told not to plant them, but that's like really interesting is that, what are the, if you just kind of send somebody something with no explanation, like what are people's inclinations to do things with that? And then like, I know just we think a lot of, I don't know, not like high-tech warfare, but kind of, and like what are those kind of low-tech things where you could just kind of like ruin entire ecosystems or something is really interesting to think about. Like a weird bio Trojan horse. The one next to that, there's thinking of the idea of like what knowledge or what's considered like technology, like because I think we think of it as like academic credentials or like shiny metal and steel things. This is from a book called Low Tech Indigenous Architecture, and it's a lot more things about like working with the environment, like rather than I think we see a lot of these like really big massive infrastructure things, but I know like out here in the West, like, they have these like really big blackouts because we have this gigantic grid system. So like what are ideas of, less resource intensive and working with local environments rather than maybe trying to bring one way we think to build infrastructure to everywhere else in the world, which I think can take a little bit, I don't know, like that colonialist flight simulator one was the idea that like even, I guess even our attempts to escape from the parts of the world can reflect it. Cause basically this was showing smoke over, Oregon, Washington, and California. So like, what if those things we used to escape, like still had to incorporate those aspects of the real world, or how can it provide a view into like the real experiences people you And then the idea of like this self-organizing or taking over like institutional spaces, not that it's like right outside my apartment, but not that they actually took it over, but the idea of like repurposing like institutional spaces and like what happens when it's kind of like rooted in the people. So kind of a random assortment of things, but
that's really interesting. Some like fascinating ideas there too. I love the idea of sort of high-tech seed warfare as well. That's kind of interesting. Seed bombing, but well, like in a bad way. Seed bombing was supposed to be a good thing, right? And now it's being used as actual warfare. I think that was a plot line in The Americans as well. The TV show, they were supposed to do some kind of killer wheat or something like that in the Soviet Union that the US was going to introduce. Or no, it was bugs. That's what it was. It was killer bugs. Eco warfare. That's a whole.
Yeah, it's like interesting to think of like how we kind of aim our like, I don't know, threat detection or signal systems towards, one view of the world. But if you aren't thinking of all those different possibilities, like how could you circumvent a super high tech system?
I mean, what's also interesting is that divide between building and destroying in here as well. There's some interesting examples you have here, this sort of distributed buildups and community organization, community architecture, versus some other interesting topics as well, including seed warfare. I think, a huge mistake, right, of like lots of science fiction is it's always framed as war or some massive battle. It's all about the hero's journey, which is just such a limiting plot line in many ways. Cool. Fantastic. Thank you. Some interesting stuff so far. Should we go with Anna Maria? Do you want to talk us through?
Yeah, sure. Mine. It's the this one.
This here, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this. Is some wild stuff. I'm enjoying this already.
Okay, mine. It's about the two artists that I followed one is Lourdes Podre, again, that's the pronunciation of the name, and she's an artist, and it's funny because inside the website, she declared herself as a award-winning internet user, so it's like kind of funny. And she has like this image against the social networks and this kind of stuff that consume people attention. Sorry, and also I put the links here because the other artist is Paweł Kunsky, and he also is like an artist against war and against social networking and all the art that he does is very like with a strong criticism. So I very like the artist both as well. And this is a picture coming from the movie Children of Men, that I think that is something that we have to take into account into the future. And the first picture is about the future of cities into the sea, and the terraforming and the new ways that we can start building the cities into the sea, because until now we only think in terms of the land, but in the future we have this expecting us. And the last picture is about a project called Black Almanac. Is about food and food technology, and they took the concept of design into the food that we eat, and how we imagine the products in the future. And I put also the link of the project in there, so you can go and revise the project because it's very interesting. They use the concept of skeuomorphism design to apply that into the food and how the food looks, and yeah, it's very, very interesting. So
Yeah,
that's pictures.
So you get actual cockroach-looking cockroach food. That one's interesting. Yeah, what we're going to eat and what's acceptable to eat is really fascinating topic as well. Yeah, really interesting.
Very much my picture.
Yeah, I love to use a lot of art references as well. There's some really, man, there's some great art references too that you can put into this. I was also thinking that film Hyperreal, which maybe a still could have gone into that. Do people know Hyperreal? No, I have to find a link to that. Anyway, that's on the side. But yeah, some really interesting ideas in here. I mean, yeah, the ocean living is pretty fascinating, especially given all the amount of water that is going to be on the planet. Yeah. I taught at the RTA, and one of our students he created a boat, actually, like a sort of boathouse that was supposed to be very easy to maintain, that you could float around and pretty much live on instead of having an actual house in the future. And it was so compelling that I really wanted to fund the prototype to actually make it my house. Yeah. So sorry, you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, and with the water and the ocean is interesting because the air is 3/4% of water, and it's like the most big resource that we have in the air. So it's like an interesting to see the living way in that environment. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it'd be a very different life, right? You know, not the forests anymore, which we're used to. I just had a bit of Chasing Waterfall stuck in my head for a second there. That was a really strange moment. Yeah, don't go chasing waterfalls. That's sorry. Great. I love how you put the links in too. Thanks for that. That is really cool. So we can look back on that. I'm just mindful of the time. Let's see. So what time is it? It's like, I tell you what. I just Ruthie, you're next. Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah. Let's get you in here. So do you want to do yours, and then we'll move on to the next bit? I mean, there's already so many stories. We've already got a lot of material here. Which one's yours? Where should we look for you? Oh, are you still here, Sruthi? Or have you been frozen? Sruthi looks a bit frozen. Maybe there's been a connection issue. Okay, maybe let's move on for now. But if she comes back, we'll get back to it. Okay, let's go back. So story spaces, interesting stuff. And if you didn't get to contribute to that yet, we'll definitely get some contributions soon. Okay, where are we at? So populating worlds. So here's where, yeah, shop. So we've got these lovely different prompts here. And then I'm going to open this up in a new, whoops. I'm going to close the story spaces for now. So my next bit was going to be moving on to actually making some cards, which tell some different stories. And just if you can bear with me for a second for what is just going on with that. Why is it even? That was just that page. Okay, sorry. Sorry, my computer gets a bit fun sometimes when I'm when I'm recording and doing all these things at the same time. Let's go back to Miro. Okay. I have another board which we can contribute to, which was in that link. So it was in that storytelling link, where we can start to put together some kind of group story elements. Let's go back down to populating worlds. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do actually just post the link to that board directly into there, because this is just being a bit whatever. So this is the link itself. I think some of you got access to it already. Okay, let's just pop that in there. Dismiss. I'm going to put that in the chat as well so you can access it. Okay. So in this kind of massive story space, oh, sorry, not the story space. I've got the wrong one. That was sorry, it's story world, not story space, of course. Different. Wrong one. Sorry, that was the story space. This is story world. Like Ghost World, but with stories. Okay. So this is sort of like a catch-all for different ideas. And hopefully it'll work okay. I think the original idea was to do some breakout rooms, but I think we're probably fine as a group just editing this one thing. So really, you could sort of start with whatever you want to start with. I think this is where it comes down to personal preference. So for some people, it may be easier to start to think of different entities like characters or organizations or pets, animals, things that exist in their story world that are probably interesting that they want to tell a story about. So that's over here. So I put these in teams, but let's see. We count how many people we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got about 7 people. So why don't I just very quickly assign people to a team? So team 1, I'm just going to do this by people who show up my window. Team 1 is Anna. Actually, I'll make a couple of people in each team. How about that? So we can get a couple stories in there. So team 1 is also Sarah. Okay. Team 2, how about we got Kelly and Oh, those two reclaim features. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just checking who's in the chat. Kelly and Louise, team 2, and then we'll do a team 3 with Shruti, if you're hopefully still here and you can hear us. And then otherwise, and I think maybe I'll jump in team 3 as well and help out. Okay. So the idea is to start off. So we've got a story world. I think there's a lot of ideas bubbling. So whatever you want to start with, maybe you want to start with character. Maybe you want to start with some technology, like the olivine sand was really fascinating. Not to be confused with the what's that famous book by J.G. Ballard, Vermilion Sand, which was a very different book definitely not about saving the world. But maybe you want to put that technology in there, something that we could find as an element of our cards. Or maybe we want to put in a story. So we want to have like maybe a prompt of a story of something that might take place. Oh, let's get back in. So a prompt of a story that might take place. So again, start where you're feeling inspired. You can start with an entity that exists. You could start with technology. You can put in, and I have to give everyone access to this is what I have to do. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to edit anything in there. Okay. Did I put place? You may want to put a situation there as well. Usually my situation goes in the story. So, if I'm going to describe a situation, I might describe that in terms of a story. If you give me a minute, I'm going to go back to this tab and I'm going to let everyone have access who doesn't have access. I'm going to do that off screen so as not to show people's private information. Okay. So yeah, and while you're doing that, what time is it now? I got about 12 minutes after, so it's been another half hour. I'm gonna talk a little bit about, I think, some ideas of some elements of stories and plots to hopefully tie back into what we just saw. But first, I'm going to give people access. So if you have ideas, write them on paper maybe, or put them in the other scratch pad we had. Let's see. Is this where things show up? I have no idea if people ask for access or not. It's really hard to find stuff here. Oh, mark all as red. Does that help? Yeah. So again, if you don't have access, just let me know. Put it in the chat and I'll give you access. I think you may have to reopen this. Yeah. Do people know how to people know how to whatchamacallit, to add different post-it notes? I've got a post-it note at the top of each team, so you can just duplicate that if you'd like to. If you click on that little plus button that shows up, yeah, that'll duplicate it. So that's why I stuck that in there. Okay. So how about, I tell you, why don't people, we just did all that thinking. Why don't people start jotting down some ideas, and then let's go ahead and then sort of categorize them a bit more. How about that? And how we do that, I'll give you a little bit of creative time. So should we take let's take another like little bit of time to get up and stretch our legs and stuff. So about another like 15 or so minutes. Come back at 30 minutes past. Around there. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. We'll do that.
So I got a question. For instance, I have I guess that we have to extract the entities and the stories from the image that we put in the first canvas, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so for instance, the first one in my case, I don't know, I will put the ocean as an entity, that's right?
Sure.
Or
Yeah, there's no wrong or right really at this
Okay.
point. I would say put whatever's interesting, and we'll go back and try and categorize it.
Okay.
The ocean could
Okay.
be a bit more in the middle. I said plot or narrative ideas. I mean, you could say, living on the ocean or feeding in the ocean. You could give it a little bit of context. That might be helpful as well. But yeah, ocean as character is interesting. Yeah, I like that. I'm even thinking like a particular ocean, like the Mediterranean Sea, or the part of the Atlantic Ocean, if that's a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I might put down the technology here. Let's see. This is going to let me type. Oh, yeah. Olivine sand, I'm going to put down because that is fascinating. Maybe even I'm going to steal from Kelly and put ghost trainers. Feels somewhere between like a Nike advertisement and a Wu-Tang song. I'm not entirely sure which one. Okay, this is great. There's lots going on. I don't really maybe let's do another. Let's see. Unfortunately, we do run out of time in not too long. So maybe we should draw us to a close. So maybe if you get some last thoughts down now, that would be good. I mean, I'll leave the board so you can come back to it later. I'll leave it up at least for another couple days, so you can come back to your ideas. Let's see. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to look through my notes. So that's what's going on here. Okay, good. People are kind of ready. And we have a guest cat appearance as well, too. So, I mean, you could see how, building a game like this can take quite a while. So I think, it's definitely a long-term thing to do. Today is just a little tiny taste of how the process might work. I also wanted to point out another couple games that are interesting. So Futures Poker by who's the studio? Strange Telemetry. Who's that? Georgina Voss and Tobias Ravel, I think. They're two really interesting designers and thinkers who created something that is actually quite similar to the Peak game, except more about sort of events that you then tie together. So in their version, they really have it's more of a stripped down thing. They sort of just have these mini stories, which are events, which then you have to make up things about, given some sort of context. So they've stripped out the entities and more gone with stories and context, which was an interesting variation. To point out this game, which was done a bit ago, called Pitch Deck, by one of the people who did Cards Against Humanity, actually, Fred Benenson. And I really like this game because the idea is that you have to sort of pitch these new startups. And but because I haven't looked at the rules in a while, but I thought the idea was to pitch a startup that's a blend of another startup. So you sort of get like a context, and you have to pitch a startup which is, say, Uber for walking your pet, right? So you get a silly Silicon Valley startup and a context, and you have to put something together. It's a technique I've used in my class where I teach this computational art class, and to get students to understand technology and artists and context, we play the curator game, which is that I have them write out all these artists, a list of artists they're interested in, a list of locations like museums that they're interested in, or different maybe location-based art places, artistic techniques. And then they have to randomly shuffle those cards, pick out an artist, a technique, and a location, and then try and pitch it as if they were a curator pitching an exhibition at a museum. So you might get like Ryoji Ikeda doing, you know, projected data analysis or something like that, or projection mapping underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, and then you have to pitch that, which has probably been done before. So again, these are all sort of techniques you can use now. So now we're sort of up, we've got some elements of our game. So now we can sort of pull together some techniques to how we actually build these stories. The one I would use, the one that Peak uses, is where, if my computer was not being so frozen, I'll have to show it to you in real live space instead of in virtual space. Okay, so I use this method. We go back to this. So this is the method I'm using. Hopefully you can see. So I've created these critical cards, these get critical cards. And the idea in this is that you sort of have two halves. So, you know, the scoring for the games is that people have to pull together game elements and tell a short story about them, ultimately in the end. And they get sorry, I'm in teacher mode. They get critically assessed by their fellow players based on how sort of entertaining or creative it is, and then how plausible it is. Okay, and then they get a set amount of points, and you can kind of see that creativity is weighted a little bit higher because it's more fun in a game to be creative. It kind of rewards riskier and crazier stories. So that was the idea there. And really, we had some other point scoring systems before that, but the idea was that, you know, when you're doing a sort of features game, you want it to be like semi-plausible. It can't be too fantastic, otherwise it gets too far away. But at the same time, it does need to be entertaining because you're with a group of people and you need to keep their interest. So those are the two dimensions that we picked. So at the end of telling a story, basically people then would assign points to it based on these cards. So that's one of the biggest scoring mechanisms we have in the game. We have other mechanisms though, and this is where it comes down to collaborative gaming. So the idea is that, you know, you have all your different cards, like you know, our actual cards. So you've got your report cards, you've got your entity cards, you've got the whole list. Let me grab some out. You've got all these different cards. So what was really helpful is that in playtests, some people were sort of hesitant to make connections between the cards. Then also it can be hard in a story game to know what cards are out there. You know, sometimes you can stop to read them, but really, you know, you want to have people sort of incrementally start to understand and read those stories as your game goes on. So in early rounds of the Peak game, people have to take like an entity card, which is their main protagonist or character, and they have to then relate it to another card in the game. And they get points for relating their card to other cards in the game to create these different connections. What makes it collaborative is that the person who owns the other card, who, you know, owns that card, the card that's in front of them, also gets points. So whenever you use someone else's cards, you get points, but someone else gets slightly less points for them. Okay, so you build these sort of shared links. And it's all rewarding. You know, there's never like subtracting. It's always just people are gaining points for using other cards. So we link plot lines that way. You can link reports. You can link any card in the game you want to, but, you know, of course, there's that mutual back and forth of points. And I mean, you could really go to town on this. Like what we really would have loved to do, because I was really trying to produce something that could be printed, which meant that we had to cost not so much. And, you know, if you're paying your own money for a prototype, you know, you can't go too wild, but it would have been really amazing to have, say, strings or have some other mechanisms of putting together cards. I mean, I think magnets, sticks, you know, you could imagine some really amazing ways of building up story worlds. In fact, some of our original boards were laser cut wood, which were in a giant circle. So people could sit in a circle and then they could relate their cards to each other based on that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities inside that, and that'd probably be a whole day in itself, just developing those kind of board games or boards to go with the cards. But for today, I would say, a good mechanism, I think, is to have people link their cards together and then get points for it, and then to have to be able to tell, and then get some kind of feedback from people on that as well. So what does that mean for us? Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay. Give me a second. So what that means for us is that in the last bit of this workshop, man, does this go? This just goes to, what is it? 7 o'clock, doesn't it? So there's only about like 15-ish minutes left, which is not a huge amount. So I'm not really going to get to plot lines, I guess. But what I'd like people to do with all these lovely things that they've made is to, yeah, how should we do this? I'm thinking of how we should manage this. I'd love to maybe try and do sort of a run through with maybe the rules of peak, just like a really basic one where we try and link some different elements together and then see how that mechanic works, and then maybe have people play with that mechanic to see if there's anything they would add to it or change about it. I don't know. How does that sound for people? Or does anyone else have a great idea of what they would like to do at this point?
Evan, if it makes any
No.
difference, I think it's scheduled for 3 hours. So I think that's what people are expecting. Not that we're pressuring you into doing 3
Was
hours.
it till 7:30?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm up for 3 hours. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. That's even better. Okay, then let's do that.
I don't want to keep you
That's great.
your nice gin and tonic or whatever it is that you've got in mind, but just in case you thought.
No, that's fine. I mean, and I think with story games, yeah, you can definitely drink and play at the same time. That's a part of them. Yeah, okay, that's great. I was just worried that people would have other things to do. So fantastic. If we can go another hour, that's great, or 45 minutes. But let's give that a try. I still like that idea. I think there's a lot of stuff down here already, so I think it'd be interesting to start to think about how these might go together into cards. Why don't we do this? I think the next step really would be to have people make like a little. I was debating whether or not people should make their own deck. Why don't we do that? Okay, let's do that quick then. So if people can, we've got all our different segments here of entities, plot ideas, story ideas, technology. Can people make their own deck of 3 cards? So maybe find an area. They can, if you do this little frame tool here, okay, you can make a little sort of custom frame. Whoa, which makes a really big frame. That's not what I wanted at all. I'm going to make a sort of small frame down here in the corner. And we'll call this Team 3 deck, if it lets me. Okay. And then I'd like you to pick your genre of cards. So you can call them, whatever you want. Again, I used the entity. My standard way of doing that was, I'm going to make that a little smaller so I can see. Okay. Oops. I'm going to call it entity, and then let's say that there's I don't know, what should we do? Entity, technology. They have those 2 categories, and then drag some of your top cards down into here. It'd be nice if you can color code them, but if you can't, that's okay too. Okay, and then build a deck out of either 2 or 3 types of different cards. Okay, you could do entity, tech, and plot. And what we're going to try and do is to try and make a little Let's try and actually play a game out of this, or experiment with the rules. Oh yeah, feel free to copy this one. That's probably a good idea. We're team 3, so if you want to edit that, I'll let you edit team 3. How about that? Let's see. Ooh, chaos cities. That's kind of cool. What do we have here? We have lots of really good stuff up here. Mm-hmm. I like that. What will be recreational when video games become the real world? Yeah. Or will it be crazier video games, or will it just be the real world? I mean, I guess that's already becoming it, right? You know, if you've got enough money, then you have a really nice part of the real world. Otherwise, you have to play video games. Okay, there's some dark ones here. This is good. Hmm. Hmm. These are looking good. Two or 3 minutes, and then let's start to play. And I think we'll have just enough time to get another round in. Hmm. Oh, sorry, Truthie, I missed your question. Uh, I mean, I think we can take from whatever is what I was going to say. Um, whatever there's to take, go for it. Oh, my Firefox crashed. Okay. Okay. Yeah, give us about a minute and then we'll get to that. Sorry, I'm just my Miro board here. AI that teaches. AI that quote unquote teaches. That'd be more like it. Okay. Ah, there we are. Oops. Okay, here we are. Firefox is back. Brilliant. So let's try and play this game. What do you say? Should we agree on the rules first? Let's see if we can make up some nice rules. So let's say let's make a little frame here. Maybe I'll duplicate one of these. Oh boy, I don't want to duplicate everything. That was too much. Let's not do that. Let's make a box. I'm going to put this over. I'll put this down here. Okay, so this will be the rules. And let's make this different color so we can see what's happening. Okay. Oops, what's that? That's not what I want to do. That is a bright yellow. Oops. Okay, so the rules would be players or teams go in turns. That makes sense to start off, yeah. So how about for the hand, players randomly take an entity, tech, and plot as their hand, let's say. So you're going to put those cards in front of you as a team. That's actually first before players go in turns. Okay, so players are going to go in turns. Maybe we'll just do it clockwise. And then what do we want to do? We want to build up the story world out of this. So let's use the peak method, which is that so players, otherwise known as the team, that someone in the team will. How about you have to link your entity to someone else's. How about tech? Because plot may be a little bit too much. Okay, so that's round one. And then you get 2 points for doing that. 1 point for the team that owns the tech. Okay, so you get a point, then the other team gets a point for that. And then let's do the same for plot. Same for entity and plot. How does that sound for rules? Is that that sounds doable? So when I say link, what I mean is in Peak, you tell one short fact. Okay, that's the idea. So you can tell any fact as short as you want to. You still get a point for it. So in other words, let's say I said I was playing as team 3. I'll start off maybe. So let's say let's highlight first off the cards that we want. How about that? So we'll just randomly highlight. You can pick 3 cards. I don't know, random or not random. It's up to you. You can highlight 3 cards. So let's say I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to highlight it in pink as my card. Truthy, do you want to pick another card too? Oh, I realize we have the same, or technology and plot have like some stuff that's mixed together there. I think we might have to rationalize this a bit. Let's see. I'm gonna go pink that. I'm gonna unpink that. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna. Are they casual athletes? Okay.
Hi.
Mhm.
Am I audible?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So my camera stopped working. It's not letting me even turn it on. So
Oh,
maybe I
okay.
thought I
No,
could
we can
talk.
hear you. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, did you want to say something?
So we pick an entity and plot,
Mhm.
and what do we do next?
Let's highlight an entity, a tech, and a plot. We'll highlight those. And those would be the 3 cards that we have. So I'm highlighting, we got casual athletes on ours. Plot is Facebook-owned cities that are powered from their energy, that get their energy from chaos and unrest. And then ghost trainers, I guess. Should we highlight that? Let's do it. Okay. So those are the 3 cards we have. So the other 2 teams now, if you all can highlight some cards too. There's some good ones there. I know which ones you'd like to highlight. I see digital food camera printer is highlighted there in team 1. That looks good. And whatever you highlight is your hand, let's say. And oh, we need scoring tokens. Let's do diamonds or stars? Stars sound good. Let's do some stars. Okay. There we go. So also teams, if you want to make your own scoring tokens, you can make your own scoring tokens. Just make a couple little fun shapes. I'm gonna go with orange. How about that? What do you reckon? Okay, there we go. So make a couple of those. There we go. Get some tokens in there. Oops. Oh, come here. Oops. Okay, there we go. All right, good enough. Let's say eight scoring tokens is good. And if you can actually successfully make 8 of them, then you are you're a pro. It's not so easy to do. It can help to zoom in and then make copies of them. Here, I tell you what, I'll make some more for people. Oh, just make sure that they're your color. So they have to be different colored. So your team will have to pick a color. Okay. So here's 8 tokens for someone if they want. How about I'll bestow these on team 2. How about that? And your color could be purple. How do you feel about purple? Okay. Okay. Shall we do it? Let's play. So okay. So first, Truthy, I'll let you go second. So I have to use our casual athletes in quarantine as our entity. I'm going to have to make a link between, what do I say, the technology in someone else's hand. So someone else, so we've got mystery seeds up here, and we've got digital food camera printer here. And I have to say one linking fact about these in our shared story universe. So, okay, I've got a weird idea. I mean, this could go either way. I mean, digital food camera printer is pretty good, but I'm going to say that our casual athletes in quarantine have received some mystery seeds and decided to go plant them when they went on one of their runs. So I'm going to put a token on mystery seeds. Okay, so that's our fact, that we have casual athletes in quarantine who are running around planting mystery seeds because they have nothing better to do. So that's a fact in our world, cannot be contradicted. Okay, how about team 2? Who is team 2? Do you want to go? That was Kelly and Louise. Do you want to pick one of you to go? We can take turns.
So we connect the our entity to somebody else's technology? Okay, great. All right, let me take a look on the bigger screen.
Yep.
All right, so let's say community movements and activists. Use ghost trainers to model the behaviors and actions that they want to see in the world.
Ooh, okay. Nice. Interesting.
I can probably be more specific if that's needed, but
you were just like establishing the base for this universe. What's nice is to take notes too. I think I might. It is good to have a pad to take notes on somewhere. I think I'll do that in another browser window. Okay, so team 3. Sorry, the team 1. Would you like to go?
Okay, I don't know if Sarah agreed with me, but we have into the entity.
That's okay. You go ahead.
communities.
We can take turns.
Okay, so into our entity we have indigenous community. So for the contact of the indigenous people with seeds and nature, we choose mystery seeds.
Ah, okay. So they've received mystery seeds. Is that the idea?
Yep.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Cool. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. So then we've got that for our first round. So the second round now is what do we say? We were going to link our entity. No, we did the entity to tech. Now entity to plot. So the people didn't go. So Sruthi, do you want to link our entity to someone else's plot now? And I'll try and take notes.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, casual athletes in quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
That's athletics is just a front for them to spread ideas as a part of the cult that they belong in. Does that make sense?
Say again. Sorry, I'm trying to type these down. Yeah.
So casual athletes in quarantine is just a front for them to
Yeah.
spread ideas and ideologies that they have as a group. So the plot of Team One.
So they're pretending to be athletes in quarantine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
As a part of their bigger arrangement.
Okay. So I guess that means that it could be, they could either be not in quarantine or not athletes. Or
Yep.
okay.
Yes. Or not both.
All right, I'm gonna go with that. I'm writing it down in the notes. Okay. Team 2. What do you say? Mm-hmm. Oh.
So we connect
How do you tune to?
our entity
Is
to
that,
somebody else's plot.
No, maybe he's on a tough connection. Oh, okay. Why do you go again, Kelly? And then we'll catch up. If Louis has a link, if he types it in the chat,
We're
we can
connecting
always integrate it a bit later.
our entity to somebody else's plot, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Let's say community movements and activists use recreational activities when video games become the real world to, I don't know, create like real-time rankings and incentives for social change.
Okay. When video games become, I'm just typing, the real world. Oh, okay. As incentives for, incentives for community action
and like social change.
So it's like that's how they get kids out and taking part in things, is they give them recreational activities, or adults, I guess. They take them out of their little homes. That sounds like almost like getting to the plot of Ready Player One in a way. Almost, slightly. Okay. Nice. As incentives. All right, got that down. Okay, so we got our other team. Team one.
Okay, so
Remind me, team one. Was that just Anna?
It's me. Can you hear me?
Oh no. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
So our entity.
Yep. Anna and Sarah.
Indigenous communities. So Indigenous communities who've been going through the process of reclaiming ancestral lands find themselves in a position where they're able to take control of lands on which government buildings are standing, and they are able to shut down the government institutions and the mechanism of government, at least in the short term, because they can do that.
Okay. Well, their own indigenous government, right?
Well, no, it's because the all the buildings are on prime land, obviously, and the land that they're obviously people have always wanted to live next to rivers and so on and so forth. As legal precedents are set where Indigenous communities are able to reclaim ancestral lands, we find that a lot of institutional buildings that have been built there in the meantime, they suddenly become their landlords. So they're able to kind of turn the tables a bit, which fits in quite nicely with the idea of decolonising the public infrastructure, actually, which is another one that we have there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, then you start to make extra. You start to get extra points for that. That would probably be if you save that one. Let's see. Yeah, we've got time for one more round then. I mean, that would be the next round then, really. I mean, Kelly, we could always use more coffee. That's for sure. I had a tea, which is I'm breaking my rule of having tea after 6 o'clock, or beer helps. Yeah, these are interesting. So we've got. I put it in the notes. Yeah, gin and tonic always helps as well. There's a sweet spot of that. If you put, I like how there's board notes. This is, by the way, using Miro to make these games and play them is like a new thing to me now. I've been play testing, and this is the first real time I've tried it, and it's kind of pretty fascinating if it works. So it's nice to take notes of these worlds, so you can go over what's going on. So we've got a really kind of fascinating world of casual athletes in quarantine who may not be who they seem they are. Community activists stuck in video games and the real world, and then indigenous communities at the same time taking back control of government and was just about to decolonialize public infrastructure. This is they're definitely setting up for some kind of very abstract plot to come together. So I'd say for the last round then, we've got about 7 minutes. So if you want, we could do a quick story inside that. So and I don't think we're going to critique the story. Let's just tell a story, and you just get points for whatever. You can use anything you want to on the board, and whatever you choose, you put down your token, and it gives you a point, you a couple points, and then the person whose token it is, whose card it is, they get a point. So in other words, you can use anything. Like I could try and use decolonializing public infrastructure and create a counter narrative to block the other narrative if I wanted to. If I could think of something for that. And that way I'd get 2 points, and then team one would get a point. Anything you want to, it's free, it's fair game. What do you reckon? I've talked a lot. Sruthi, do you want to do the story, or do you want me to do it? I'll give you the opportunity if you want.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'd like to add to this story and say and say all of this is happening in an ocean neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. I'm not sure where to go from here.
Normally, you get some ideas for stories, but it is good, I think, in story games to take a quick break so people can think and write some ideas. We can collaboratively, maybe we do a handoff. So stories, try and keep it to about 1 to 2 minutes at most. So we've got it happens in ocean habitat. I like maybe it's like Surreal's Corpse. So one person starts the story, the next person has to end it. So it starts in ocean habitat. So we're talking about the casual athletes that would have to be swimmers. And I guess they're planting seeds on little bit of islands, on these little islands in the stream. But that also means that we're in floating ocean cities where they live, which luckily we've kind of solved climate change a bit because we have olivine sand on each one of these, covering one of these little oceans, where they're trying to plant these mystery seeds, which somehow seem to grow into these sort of weird plastic-like creatures, which look a bit like trees, but make a really interesting sound, a bit like J.G. Ballard singing trees. I'm going to stop there. Okay, that went surreal. Yeah. How about team 2? You want to pick it up from there in our ocean cities? I think, Kelly, maybe you should just go because I think Louise is having
so I'm
trouble.
picking up your story, right? And I can use whatever I want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you just can't contradict it. That's all.
Maybe Facebook-owned cities start to, I don't know, or Facebook starts to take over the floating cities and spark chaos and unrest to like power their global servers and general energy. So indigenous architects use, let's see, I guess their information and technology to somehow circumvent this super high-tech stuff. Maybe there's something like that expands off of olivine sand that can, you know, counteract that somehow. And then they overthrow the gods of social media through that.
We're going there. I like that though. They're the ones who sort of rescue everybody through their non-chaos, their anti-chaos, and or their positive chaos, I guess, maybe. Okay. Team, what do you think? Do you want to do the pass-off story where one of you starts and the other one has to finish?
Okay, so going back to the reclaimed buildings, a lot of the less historical buildings, especially the ones in the coastal areas, are demolished to make way for more olivine sand. And this enables future farmers. Do I put one on olivine sand as well as future farmers? Oh God, I can't.
Yeah, go for it.
Up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying
it can
to
be
pick
tricky.
up my things.
Do you want me? I can do it for you.
No, it's all right. I've done it now. Which enable future farmers to work with the improved infrastructure. Oh, for goodness sake. Could you put it on future
Here you go.
farmers?
I got you. You tell a story. I'll pick them out. How about that?
Yeah. enabled future farmers to work with the improved deacidified oceans to put in kelp and bivalve beds to produce more food, sustainable food for this floating city.
Nice. That's a good mix of stuff in there. Do we have two? We had two future farmers. I didn't even realize that, actually.
Oh yeah. No, neither did I.
Okay, and that was perfectly at 6:30 now at my time, or 7:30 at the end of the workshop. So we did it. We got a whole play of the game in, and it looks like Team 2 came out a bit ahead. I think you might have. Oh, it's hard to say though with the stars. No, sorry, Team 1. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've missed one though on Team 2 with the stars.
8.
Oh no, you had the Facebook cities too. Oh, it's so close. It was so close. I'm gonna give it to Team 1 though, I think, because I think you might have just got a few ahead. Yeah, nice. So I hope this was interesting. It definitely takes a bit of play testing, but you could see that even in like 3 hours, you can actually pull together kind of a decently interesting bunch of collection of things and stories, and then actually play them. I'd love to see if you do come up with some interesting other rules, or you want to take this and then branch out and make your own story game out of it. That would be fantastic. Yeah, wherever you want to go from here. The notes are going to stay up. I'm going to leave them up for maybe future workshops. The Miro board I'll leave up for a little bit. So if you want to keep it, maybe you can export it. I think there's an export button at the top. And then you could check out the shared notes. Unfortunately, my Miro account, I got the free account, so I can only keep, I think, 4 boards. But maybe I'll invest in the future and see about getting some more. Yeah, is there anyone want to reflect or give any feedback or have any last thoughts before we end? No.
Just to
Okay.
say thank you. It's a really
good. Well, if you think of anything,
really good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. That was fun. You guys are so creative. That was really interesting. I was a little tired going into this, but there's some really fascinating stuff that came through. If you want to stay in touch, Evan Raskob on Twitter, and that's probably the best way to reach me, to be honest, these days. Or I'm also Evan at repeatgame.com. So yeah, feel free to stay in touch. Great to meet you all, and I guess take care. All right. So long.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.